Hey family, boom, 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 boom. Welcome back to Perspective with Itu. And darling, 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 you won't believe who I have here for you today. Anyway, let's get right into it. Get ready to dive into the electrifying world of Perspective with Itu as we unpack award-winning broadcaster darling, Masechaba Khumalo. Hailing from Zambia but conquering South Africa, this powerhouse entertainer, TV sensation, radio maven, and master moderator is here to rock your screens here today. Yes, on Perspective with Itu. With a string of hit shows like Into Africa, Weekend Live, and their iconic One Day Leader, and many, many, many more other shows, Masechaba has left an indelible mark on their entertainment and government scene. Buckle up for a wild ride through her incredible journey on Perspective with Itu. Masechaba, welcome, and thank you so much for honoring us.
Wow, thank you so much for honoring me. What an incredible welcome. Thank you.
I mean, you have done absolutely amazing things. So, of course, we need to celebrate that.
I appreciate that very much.
Right? Sean, you're a legend, actually.
Wow. You know, to get those flowers while I'm still alive is incredible, and I really appreciate it.
I see you as a powerhouse. I see you as a woman who have taught other women to have voices. You know, remember when my production manager said to me that, hey, we're going to have Masechaba, I was like, what? I was like, oh gosh, you must be kidding me. I know Masechaba has taught a lot of women especially to have a voice and to be able to speak out and live your own truth, right? But today, we want to get to know the deeper Masechaba. So now at home, they call me Habampiti Tumedeng.
Hey, Obizama.
Bampita Tolofelo.
Okay.
So now whoever calls me Tolo, I know knows me. They know me from home.
Yeah.
So whoever I meet here around Gauteng, and they're like, Tolo, I'm like,
It's deep.
listen.
Yeah.
Yes, you know what I mean? Like, it's a kwasatsamai.
Yeah. Going
So-
back to the roots.
Yes. So like, what do they call you at home?
Chabi.
Right?
Yeah. So nna ke a tseba hore ha kutlwa motho a re Chabi.
Yes.
No, wait thinking Fantuka af.
Fantuka Av.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So what gets one day, nna ke holetse ko Dube.
Okay.
In fact, I've got quite a dynamic childhood because how na moksa holelang teng. You know, I wasn't even born in this country.
Yeah.
Having been born in Zambia, in the capital city, Lusaka, I was raised for the first 5 years of my life in an unfamiliar environment. Well, it was all I knew, so
Yeah.
unfamiliar to my parents, I suppose. Nebale ko di kampong as masole with the umkhonto wesizwe,
Yeah.
and here I was, a product of the struggle, of the liberation movement. And so, interestingly, even my home language wasn't my first language. My first language was Sinyanja, which is the local dialect. And so, I get a Chabi, Dube, my home, where my father comes from. Me oke, me Masechaba lekalaki. Yeah, ke rwetse ka yena, I was named after her. She lived in Dube. This is what we call the headquarters. So anyone Ompisan Chabi, ke Nampisan Chabi, Nampisa Chaba Santana Pela.
Yeah.
My family calls me Chabi. People who know me since high school call me Chabi. That's my nickname. Now the whole world knows what it is. But you don't get to call me that unless you know me.
Yeah. So that's the person we'd like to know today.
Yeah.
We want to get to know, like Tabi.
Yeah.
Who is Tabi?
Who's Chabi?
Yes, who is Chabi? Tell me about how you grew up with your mom, your dad, your siblings. How was that?
Sure. I didn't have an ordinary childhood. It was quite extraordinary. It was ordinary to me because it's the only life that I knew.
Yeah.
But to be born under the circumstances that I was is quite incredible when I look back now, only in retrospect, am I like, wow, now I understand why throughout my entire life, people have been like, so when are you writing a book?
Yeah.
When people actually get to know, you know, because I feel as much as people think they know me, but they've gotten to know me in layers. And the few that have experienced me in my entirety are just like, when is the movie coming out? You know, you're seeing the film, quite literally. I was born and raised for the first 5 years of my life in Lusaka, Zambia. And my parents then illegally smuggled me into South Africa at the age of 5, myself and my baby sister, Mudie.
Okay.
And re passport ya ngwana wa nna ne ke le ngwana papsimlaeng under false pretenses. This was obviously a very dangerous mission. Because had they been found out, my aunties and everybody who was involved in smuggling me into my own country, you know how it was, kadina ko apartheid, you know. So kahulela ko Soweto ko Dube for quite some time. It was a brief time between the ages of 5 and approximately 6.5, 7. Yeah. By the age of 7, I was already living in the United States, in California to be precise, with my parents. My sister remained behind because she was too young. My parents were students studying overseas. Yeah, Kapesari. I believe it was the United Nations that had given them the bursary. And so the journey of the rest of my life began. Grew up in the States, came back in the later part of my life, finished off high school in South Africa and tertiary. And I'm here.
Sure. Do you think that you take the strong resilience from your parents? Because, I mean, they were here for the struggle. They were basically the midst of the struggle. And they were like, you know what, like, we are still going to smuggle our, like, beautiful, gorgeous, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, girls, and this is what we want to do, and this is what. So they were actually quite resilient.
Absolutely.
Right?
Definitely, I'm a product of both these people because in their own special way, they've contributed so many values into the woman that I've become. Like my dad, for instance, is a very disciplined man. You know, he's someone who's very structured in how he does things. He has an intense level of focus. He's very family oriented. And my mom is somebody who's very headstrong. She is extremely driven. And she's always, for as long as I've known her, been someone who has been unapologetic, especially in her purpose and in her mission in life, you know? So I definitely take from the both of them these attributes that I have. And imagine being raised by 2 soldiers. The ultimate product would be me, right?
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And growing up, did you grow up like with a low self-esteem? Like were there like times where like you had like a low self-esteem and your parents were still there and they were like, girl?
No one has actually ever asked me that. I think people assume that I've always been this Masechaba. Like I woke up like this. I was born this way, okay?
Yeah.
I absolutely had a very low self-esteem. I was extremely shy. I was painfully shy as a child. Now imagine having to adjust to all these realities. 1 minute you're in Zambia. That's your comfort zone. The next minute, I went through so much. However, having a family that was extremely supportive. Then getting to the United States of America, not speaking a word of English except knowing how to say hi.
Wow.
Right? There was a time in my life I couldn't speak English.
Wow.
Yes. And having to adjust after Sesotho. So I've always been thrown in the deep end and having to adapt to different circumstances, and which I didn't know would one day become my superpower. Right?
Yes.
So, but at the time, especially in the US, I couldn't even raise my voice. I couldn't speak up, even in class, like to ask questions or to give a presentation or anything like that. I wasn't that girl. I never imagined I'd become a journalist or even an award-winning broadcaster. None of that was in my radar. I purely studied journalism to be a writer behind the scenes, because I've always been in love with storytelling. And nonetheless, God had a different plan. I am today.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God, that says so much to us as well. Like to say that the person that we see now is because of those experiences.
Yeah.
I have found that, so I was raised by a single mom. And so like my dad left, immediately when I got burned. And he was like, okay, thank you, bye.
Wow.
Yeah, just like that. And then they got a divorce, and my mom had to basically raise me up, So growing up, I always had that thing, I don't need a man. I'm a strong woman. Women have like done it before me. And I've always had complications in my relationships because of that. Because you know how men feel like their masculinity is based on providing.
Right.
One, it's based on being a man. And for me, it was just like, no, but you're not going to tell me anything. How and what is your perspective on being a wife and also being a woman in terms of like a relationship coming from the woman of strength and power that you are from?
Well, it's so good that we're having this conversation, because often people fail to recognize the red flag within themselves.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because society has conditioned us to see the red flag in others.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, often when a relationship fails, it means both parties have failed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Often. And in my case, I would say being fiercely independent has been a contributing factor to my perhaps not allowing myself to free fall in a relationship. Because remember that as much as I am this power woman out there, but the struggle within my relationships was the struggle to submit. I think I've reached a point in my life for the very first time. I was actually telling my partner, where I said to him just the other day, you are actually the first man that I've really truly been able to submit to in a relationship. Now, I know a lot of people are going to have eyes walking out like, because I sound like a woman who's oppressed.
Yeah.
Because the concept of submission requires very mature ears. But you can only submit to a man whose leadership you trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And only when you arrive at the point within yourself, and you can only trust when you get to the point of maturity in your life, that you are able to allow yourself to be led as well.
Yeah.
So due to this like fierce, independent woman, and it's not based on the fact that I felt like I don't need a man in my case, but in my case, it was more the challenges of having been raised by a mother who was perpetually on the edge. So my mom is a military veteran. I'm so proud of her because she's been so open with her condition. But it also came with a lot of, and still does come with a lot of clinical depression, a lot of anxiety. And so growing up as a young child, I didn't understand all of that. So I grew up walking on eggshells. I grew up afraid to trigger her condition because I indirectly felt like I was the cause. Right? I felt like I was responsible because what happens in a situation where you are living with someone, it may not be your mom, it may be your husband or your wife. I was talking to someone just yesterday whose wife is still battling with postpartum depression. It's been 2 years that they've had a baby, and he says, we are stuck in a rut. What that does to you as the person on the receiving end, not understanding that this person is probably lashing out at you because you're the closest person to them. But what that did to my young mind was made me afraid to express myself, made me afraid to express my needs, my desires, made me afraid to be vulnerable. So I've never been able to open up to anyone to the point that I could be vulnerable and submit to a relationship. So hence the wall. So I don't think anyone has truly ever gotten to know me as much as the person who's with me now. And I said to him, I'm so happy you met this version of me. Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved what you said when you said that you were able to submit because of his leadership.
Yes.
And excuse me. And I think men, in most cases, think that being a leader is being stern and hard and, etc. I have found that with my husband as well, I was able to submit to him as strong and fierce and resilient as I am, because this man would kill for me. This man is the type of man that actually serves me as well.
Yes.
So submission is actually submitting to
Both
other
ways.
It's not just a woman submitting.
Yeah.
It's a man and a woman submitting to one another.
Yes.
And I have found that with my previous relationships, as well, I couldn't submit because, like, for me, it was like, no, you're not going to tell me what to do.
Exactly.
Do you know who I am?
A grown-ass woman.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I got that from my mom.
Yeah.
And with my husband, it was like, but this man is willing to make me a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
Simple thing.
And he listens to you.
And he listens.
And he cares about your
Yeah.
opinion. He respects you. He
Yeah.
honors you.
Yeah.
He protects you.
He protects me.
Right.
He would literally
Kill for you.
kill
And you
for
said.
me.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's so easy to then submit.
Mm-hmm.
If submission is forced,
Right.
then it's not submission.
That's the problem. Yeah. It needs to be inspired. It needs to be inspired. So I believe, and I truly believe, whether it's about relationships or whether it's with regard to parenting, you don't push people. You pull them. You attract them.
I get you.
You live in such a manner that they are inspired or drawn towards either that lifestyle or drawn towards you or to your way of being. Or it's about inspiring them in how you are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, I love that. Have you spoken to your mom about walking on eggshells around her and not being able to be that vulnerable around her because of what she's been through?
I don't think we've had a direct conversation, actually. I don't think we have had a conversation about this. I think I've written letters when I was a child. It was the only way that I could express myself.
Yeah.
But also remembering at the time, maybe she wasn't ready to receive that communication.
Yeah.
That might be a conversation that this podcast has actually inspired.
Sure.
That we need to have now that we're grown women. Because remember that she was a child when she gave birth to me. So it was like a child raising a child, So she was figuring herself out while she was trying to figure out this motherhood thing as well and doing the best that she can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and sometimes that is just enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, doing your best.
Yes.
I know she gave it her best with what she knew and what she had. And, one thing I absolutely admire and respect is that all these years later, she's one of probably the only parent that I know who has been able to say, I'm so sorry.
Ooh.
I put you through so much and you're just a child. And that's the lesson that I hope that parents take away today.
Ooh.
For this journey, I can only hope that my children will forgive me for whatever, There are no perfect people. There are no perfect parents. I can only hope for the same grace.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ooh. Have you walked through a journey of healing for yourself, like where you're like, you know what, I can now be vulnerable, not just with like anybody, but with myself more importantly, especially because you grew up without being able to be vulnerable, around your mom?
I have. It's been a lifetime of healing, an entire lifetime. And also, there are pros and cons to being raised by soldiers. Like, they're trained to Bamasol. They were never trained to be mothers or fathers or, and extend and be, those people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it has taken me making a conscious decision and making an effort to say, I'm going to be a conscious parent. And now we're lucky because we have what our parents didn't have. We have manuals, we've got books.
Yeah.
There are books and books and books and books that have been written about conscious parenting. So no one can say, I didn't know. They can say they didn't know because the information wasn't there. We must make the effort to invest time to read, to listen to podcasts, to, watch interviews, to really take in information that is being shared by people who walk the journey before us.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I have a father who was never there for me, but when he was a bank. And
Okay.
yeah, and every time, like when I would call him, the first thing he would be asking is, how much money do you need?
Yeah.
And growing up, I mean, like, that was fun, right? So it was like, oh, great, yeah, like, send me like 1,000 rands here, da da da. And as I started growing up, I was like, but I actually want more from this man. I want love. I want compassion. I also want this man to just hold me and say, come here, let me just like hold you for a bit. And I didn't get it. And I think for me, it really just like broke a lot of things in me. And I think that's why also I had this wall around men, because like for me, it was like, listen, yeah, I don't need you. But I had to walk through a healing journey. And the healing journey for me was compassion for him. Because I felt like, you know what? He didn't grow up with parents who were loving. He grew up with providers, right? And that is what he is accustomed to. So how do you then expect love and compassion from someone who doesn't even have it himself?
Yes.
Right? And I think that brought so much healing for me. And I was able to forgive him and love him from that place, knowing very well that he loves me in his way, right? What does that mean to you?
I'd be interested to know, how did that change your relationship with your father?
It has changed how I interact with him, but it has also changed my love for him, because before I sort of like hated him. It was so close to like resentment. I was like, I don't want this man around me. And I remember the last time I had a conversation with him, well, one of the last few times, it was like, you know what, Dad, this is what I've always wanted from you. And I thought that, I was going to get it. But also coming from a man from like 19, how many years, he doesn't understand it. And I think for me, the revelation that I received was exactly that. You can't give what you yourself you don't have.
Yeah.
And I started loving my dad from a place of where he is, and not from a place of me wanting him to be a certain way. So it was like, you know what? I love you just the way you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important, because one of the things that we forget is that all of us are having a human experience. We're just spirits. We are figuring this thing out as we go. And when you look at it, we fail so often to actually recognize the fact that our parents weren't born parents.
Yes.
I wasn't born someone's mother.
Yeah.
So there are things that I'm learning that I'm still going to learn. That I've had to learn. And so we must also be able to be as gracious with our own parents to say, this at one point was just a 16-year-old girl who was figuring herself out, who was getting her heart broken, who experienced her own trauma. And the same can be true also for your dads as well, whether he's the type that ran when things got tough, whether he's the type that is just a provider but is incapable of giving love, or whether he is a tyrant, or whether he is even people that are extremely abusive. Just the other day, I was interviewed and asked about a case of a soccer player who's been found guilty of assaulting his girlfriend. And for me, the question is, what does he have to say about that? What is his standpoint? I can see everything that his club is doing, which is fantastic, all these programs which are necessary. But where does he stand? And what is he going to do moving forward? Now that he's here, how is he going to turn this around? So we always have the power to break the generational curses.
Sure. And that brings me to a conversation that we actually once had with like Sandile Matlangu, and he was saying that the victim is also the victim. So like the bully is also the victim.
Right. Hurt people hurt.
Yes, hurt people hurt people.
Exactly.
And sometimes we just focus on the victim and we don't focus on the bully.
Right.
On the person that has actually hurt.
Yes.
And then we leave them and then we release them, in society.
Yeah.
And then they just like keep on hurting people.
Yeah.
Because they don't know any better.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't do that work.
Right? Can you discuss with us any mental health challenges that you faced in the epitome of your success, in your career, and you still had to look like you had everything like together, but deep down you knew that crap.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was quite a big challenge for me in the beginning. At the beginning of my career, I didn't know there was such a thing. I didn't know it was a condition. I didn't know it had a name. I battled so much with my success, with my power, with my gift, the magnitude of it, and the impact that I was having. And constantly, while all of this was happening, feeling as though I did not measure up to all of these accolades,
Sure.
Almost as if I was lucky.
Yeah.
As opposed to owning the fact that I'm here because I was born to do this.
Yeah.
And I have the gift that I've been given. The seed has been planted in me so that I can create this impact. And I am this person.
Yeah.
And it's not luck.
Yeah.
And, it's been a journey of me learning more about myself, but also learning more about this, what I knew then eventually to be called imposter syndrome, that even people who've had experience of 20 years, Oprah Winfrey, still feel at times that they look around and think, and it's not even a feeling or a thought, it is just often, it's just a disalignment, Sometimes you check out of the moment. And there are actually people that struggle with their own power or their own success, or it's a thing, actually.
Yeah.
But the minute I began to understand that everything that I'm doing, all of us, actually, you are doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
It's your first time being this person that you are.
Yeah.
It is every single day that you wake up is the first time you are experiencing that day.
Yeah.
If you are a mother, it was your first child.
Yeah.
In fact, it's the child's first time being your child.
Sure.
So the both of you must take it easy on each other. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
so I started to look at life from that perspective, that we are all literally just winging it. Then I began to embrace life and just throw myself all the way in.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Are you able to celebrate yourself now?
Yes.
Clap, girl, please.
Girl, without a shadow of a doubt. Yes. Yes. I walk in there like God sent me.
Ooh, come on.
Yes.
Sure. I think that is such a blessing, because I think most people can't celebrate themselves.
Yeah.
Because we've been told that is arrogance, right? And I think there's a fine line between celebrating yourself and being arrogant. And I think a lot of people, they can't even thank themselves. And like you were saying now, that we are not even merciful to ourselves.
Absolutely. I think we've been given the wrong information, especially women. I'm not a genderized person. I've never looked at life from a gender lens. But the truth of the matter is that it's mostly females that have the struggle to celebrate. Men, oh, please.
Yeah.
A man will celebrate himself.
Oh, yeah.
A man will never be perceived to be arrogant for bigging himself up. And so we should never, ever confuse the two. Actually, I think it's the complete opposite. When you fail to celebrate yourself, when you fail to acknowledge the power in yourself, you are actually spitting in God's face. Because it's been invested in you. What are you doing? We feel away. So walk like you know that you have it and you own it. And also, how do we teach the next person that comes after us if we don't even have it in ourselves? And I've seen for far too long people struggle with abantu bazotini syndrome, or, you know, all these conditions that our society has placed upon us. Wuti, a woman who owns her power is arrogant. No, actually, I feel that to some extent, humility is disingenuous. Now, we have to separate the difference between putting yourself down and being humble. Being humble means unalibotu. In the African sense of the word. But humility is not allowing people to walk all over you. It's not silencing your voice. It's not shying away from your accolades. That's not humility.
That's not humility.
You're failing yourself, and you're failing your God.
And you're also failing the next generation.
Exactly.
Where now they are like,
exactly.
I love Masechaba because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9, 10. And now if you shy away from that,
you're misleading.
You're misleading them. You're misleading the next generation. Oh, I love that. You talk about power a lot. What's your perspective on power?
Power is innate. It's inner. I believe that we are all born with it. Every single one of us. When we come from the spirit world, I believe we come from somewhere. No one is just born. When a zygote is created. Life is not that scientific. I believe as soon as we are born, we come carrying within us a light that was embedded in us that begins to dim as we grow because of external factors, because of our environment, because of our teachings, because of our experiences. And the more we get immersed into the earth and the world and society, the more our light dims. And so that's why you find that when you become an adult, you spend most of your life trying to do what? Remember. Now, when you take the word remember, it is to find yourself, to remember who you are. So life is not about discovering yourself. It's about remembering who you already are and the power that you were born with. And if you can always bear that in mind, then I think it's easier to really come back to and embrace the inner power that's in you already.
I love that. Can you talk about a time when you experienced failure or a setback and how you bounced back from it with that power?
Sure. One time. How much time do you have? My whole life has been about bouncing back.
Please.
Yes. Like, guys, I don't even recognize the word failure anymore. For me, it's like, how many times have I tripped? How many times have I stumbled?
Sure.
Yeah, because every single experience was a lesson. It is a very difficult question to answer because I don't identify with failure in that sense. As a spirit-led person, I believe that everything that happens for a reason. Whether good or bad. And I say in inverted commas because that's perception, right?
Yeah, it's perception.
Like rain. When it rains, some people see that as a bad thing. Some people embrace it. If you're a farmer, your perspectives are different. I understand. So for me, really, I would say the most important aspect of my coming into my awakening has been really recognizing life for what it is, that nothing is a failure. Everything is a lesson. Whether it is a relationship that didn't work out, whether it's a job that you lost, whether it's an experience that did not go as you had intended. But ultimately, every single experience that life brings to you, that you go through, is for the evolution of your own consciousness. So I've learned that you need to be open and always embrace and thank God. Libadimu, despite whatever circumstance you're facing. Because trust me, it's like connecting the dots, you know? Steve Jobs once gave a talk to a university to graduates and said that you can actually look it up. It changed my life. It's called connecting the dots. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back. So what that means is that one day you will look back at that experience and it will all make sense. Why you had to go through that. Why did you go through the fire that left you so scarred? Why did your dad have to leave? You'd never be this Itu that we know who today has her own podcast, who's out here changing the world, kicking down doors, showing people that you don't have to succumb to your individual experiences.
Sure, I love that. And one of my biggest breakthroughs, it's exactly what you're saying now about how every single thing happens for a certain purpose. That is what broke that mindset of victim mindset, where I was like, I don't want to be seen, in the world. I don't want to be heard. And that is what led me also to break through from trying to commit suicide 3 times.
Yeah.
And I read a book by Rick Warren called The Purpose-Driven Life Work. And it literally just talks about that, how every single thing that happens to you happens for a certain purpose. And I had to find my purpose from that. And for me, it was just like, God, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why did you allow this to happen when I was such a baby? I was only 11 months old.
Wow.
Why? And I think when I found out what my purpose was, which is to bring hope and healing, that transformed my mindset to the person that I am now. And now I'm like, honey,
hey,
you're going to live with these scars and people are going to see them and they're going to love them because I love me.
Yeah.
Right? What does purpose mean to you and how did you find yours, if you did?
Oh, I hope I have. I certainly hope I have. Thank you, first and foremost, for acknowledging, recognizing your purpose.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people that you are inspiring on the planet by waking up to your calling.
Sure.
Purpose is everything to me.
Yeah.
It's absolutely everything. It defines who I am when I open my eyes in the morning. It defines how I respond to tough circumstances. It defines how I interact with people in the world. It even just defines how I move in the world in terms of the choices that I make from a career-driven point of view. I don't make mental decisions. I'm driven by my spirit, and my spirit is purpose-driven. Yeah. So I truly believe that every single one of us has a purpose.
Yeah.
And our job in life is to discover what that is.
Yeah.
So that we're able to live a full and fulfilling life.
Yeah.
So I allow myself to be moved by whatever the purpose is that God has intended for me. I don't always know what that is. Yeah. I do recognize that I'm a developer by nature. I do recognize that my purpose is here to inspire transformations, to inspire people to transform their mindsets.
Oh, love that.
To inspire people to find themselves.
Sure.
To fulfill their own purposes. And every day when I wake up, I pray for God, Libadimu, to bring me closer to the experiences that I need in order for me to fulfill my purpose.
Sure.
And to make the right decisions, not necessarily based on my conditions or circumstances or ego, even. Sometimes ego can get in the way, but to make decisions that are going to take me forward and bring me closer to what that purpose is.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And in you finding your purpose and living each day and helping other people to transform their mindsets and helping them find their purpose, are you happy as a child?
I'm at my happiest when I'm fulfilling my purpose.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm at my happiest when I'm living my highest expression.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah. In fact, that's how you know. That's how you know when you're not aligned.
Yes.
You will be miserable.
Yes.
I don't care how much money you make.
Yes.
I don't care how wonderful your life seems to others or how important your job seems. You will be absolutely miserable if you are not waking up every day and fulfilling your purpose-driven mission in life. Sure. That's how you know that you need to move. Yeah.
Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
Is there a time in your childhood when you look back and think, this is the reason why I'm sitting here today as child?
Yes. I was actually just talking about this the other day with my partner. We talk about a lot.
I love that.
Yeah.
Talk.
Yeah. Well, not much pillow talk happening in the last month with baby, but anyway, we love him. So I never thought I'd get to the place where I say, I'm actually happy that the abuse happened when I was a kid. I'm actually happy that it happened, because I wouldn't be the kind of parent that is as expressive and as intentional about what I communicate to my kids as I am today because of what I went through.
Yeah.
I'd probably have that conversation too late. Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely at this stage of my life, I absolutely recognize, and I'm actually grateful for every single experience that has happened, because if it were not for those experiences, I would not be the type of person or the type of parent that I am today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and fix as one regret that you have in your life, where would you go?
I regret and fix it. My only regret in life is believing even for a second that it was my job to convince people of my value.
Oh,
It's my only regret. The only thing I could ever regret is the moment or moments where I truly believed it was my job to make people see my value.
Can you elaborate? Because that is deep.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people suffer from that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like a lot of people suffer from that.
Yeah. Constantly feeling, either professionally or personally, that you have to over exert yourself and your talent and your gift, or prove your worth,
Sure.
even beyond what is necessary, because I have to show this person who I am. If that person doesn't already recognize your value, then keep it moving.
Yeah.
My darling.
Yeah.
Move on to the next.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it is professionally or personally speaking, and especially in relationships. I don't know why we do that as individuals, not just as women, as human beings. Men do it, women do it all the time. Yeah.
Do you not find that it's because you haven't found yourself as well? So now, in the midst of you trying to find yourself, you are now trying to prove to others who you are.
It could be that.
Yeah.
It could also be imposter syndrome. It could also be childhood trauma. Did you know that our personality types are all trauma responsive?
Yes.
I recently found that out.
Yes.
I recently found that out. That driven, ambitious human being that you see who kicks down doors, that's a trauma response.
Yeah, it's a trauma response.
Yeah. That vulnerable, needy individual who's constantly clingy and wanting validation all the time, that's a trauma response.
Yeah, it's a trauma response.
So I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think that just says to others as well that it's so important to find who you are and to be confident in who you are.
Yeah.
And to love yourself the way you are.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you don't need to constantly be trying to tell other people who you are.
Exactly.
Because then people can just see it.
Right. People feel it. And in some cases, have you noticed, whether it's that brash boss that you have, and I call it a boss because they are leaders and they are bosses. You get these types in the work environment who are abusive, quite frankly.
Yeah.
They are overexerting their power and abusing their level of control or power that's been vested in them. These are the most inferior feeling people. These are the people with the highest complexes in life. And it's exactly the same thing. That's how it comes out in some people. You end up becoming abusive. You know, because you don't know who you are. So you're constantly trying to prove to us who you are.
Who you are.
Yeah. And in some cases, it can be as detrimental as, you know, exerting abusive control or power over other people.
Oh, I love that. If you had 60 seconds, if you had a certain 60 seconds call from someone dead or alive, who would it be and what would you sing?
My grandmother.
Ooh, I love it.
My grandmother, Maureen Itumeleng Khumalo. Yeah, that was my favorite person in the world. That was my G, my rock star. I would just tell her I love her and remind her of the immense impact that she had on my life. I have her strength. As much as I have her daughter's strength, but actually we both have her strength. Yeah. And I feel like she was a woman who was not seen or heard in the course of her life because of the time that she grew up in. And I want her to know that I saw her, that I heard her.
Ooh, love that.
And I still do.
Yeah.
Every day.
When she was alive, were you able to tell her that you love her?
We didn't have that type of conversation between us, but we were always showing the love to each other.
I love that.
She always had my back and I always had hers. In a way, only the two of us understood.
Just under that.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, wow. So I love that.
Yeah.
Masechaba, we have the last few questions on perspective. And this is your perspective on like certain items, 60 seconds answer, right?
Okay.
What is your perspective on feminism?
Feminism has been twisted of late. I feel like feminists have lost their way.
Yeah.
So much so that I don't identify with it anymore.
Sure.
Back in the day when women were marching to the union buildings to fight for the rights of women, that was feminism at its height.
Yeah.
At its best, at its peak. Feminism today are women who are fighting to have abortions without the consent of their husbands. I'm telling you the truth.
Sure.
These are conversations I've had on the radio with feminists who feel that it's their body, they are entitled to do as they wish, whether or not they're married, whether or not there's a husband in the picture, and they don't need to consult anybody.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I don't care who comes for me, please do. But I don't subscribe to that notion because we are lying to our children. We are going against the principles of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
And we need to come back to the center.
And that in itself is actually abusive, right?
Yeah.
And that's another like childhood trauma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on spirituality?
Spirituality is in every single one of us because we are spirits on a human journey. Whether you subscribe to Christianity, which is a religion, or Buddhism, or Islam, or Wanabadimu, or whether you're an atheist. Ultimately, if you understand that we are spirits, some good and some bad. But demons are also spirits.
Yes. Which one are you talking about?
Yeah. So we are not spiritual, we are spirits. Yeah. We need to understand that first and foremost. Yeah.
What is your perspective on having a voice as a woman?
We are the bearers of light in our communities, in society, from the moment that we are born. And the onus is on us to find our voice. If you've lost it or if you feel that it was never shown to you, because the truth is we need people. People need people. Yeah. I'm the way that I am because my mom, Nadulam Pompa, when I was a kid, she reminded me that I'm great. She told me that I'm an individual, that I don't need to subscribe to the pressures of society or my peers, that I don't need anyone's validation. But not everyone has that type of support structure. So if you grew up or did not grow up with that level of inspiration in your life, the onus is on you to find it in yourself so that you can break that generational curse and give to the next generation, either through your children or your relatives or society or your community, what you did not have. I believe that it is our responsibility in whatever shape or form. Yeah.
Sure. What is your perspective on beauty?
Beauty. Beauty, you know that saying kaSizulu bare ngimuhle ngoba ngimuhle ngaphakathi.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beauty is inner. And I believe this for myself because I'm not attracted to people's physical attributes.
Yeah.
That's why you can never look at any one of my exes and see a commonality. You know what is my type.
You're like,
no, you would not be able to identify to what's Masechaba's type, just by looking at someone's physical attribute. I'm drawn to people's souls. I'm drawn to people's character. Of course, we find good-looking people attractive. We are attracted to whatever your idea of beauty is, but I don't see beauty in someone who doesn't have a beautiful soul.
Sure.
I don't care how good-looking some people think you are.
Yeah.
I don't see it at all. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's Youth Month, and I think it's only fair that we say something to the youth. What is your perspective on being a youth, and what advice would you give to a youth who has no hope and no grit to keep on walking?
Wow. We have a huge responsibility as young people. Yes, I'm still young.
Yes, darling. Yes. Even me.
I'm young. Born. We have a huge responsibility to shape our environment. And by that, I mean that it's not your job to go out there and change the world.
Yeah.
But it's your job to go out there and be the best that you can be so that your world is inspired to change.
Yeah.
Right? So you have the tools now. Whether you know it or you recognize it or you don't, you have the tools. Young people today are exposed to so much more than the youth of 76.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, you don't have an excuse.
Sure.
How na Wi-Fi? I see machita ko kasi ko tube, batle ko clinic. Just have you seen these guys that are hanging out outside the wall of the clinic?
Yeah.
And you're wondering why they're all hovering around there because they're connecting to the
all the Wi-Fi
hotspot.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. There absolutely isn't unless if you're living in a cave or a hole.
Yeah.
If you have a little bit of access, you've got access to the world. So make it count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And we have come to the end of our show. Oh, man. I wish we had more time. I'd like you to please take this mirror.
Mirror?
Yes, this mirror over here. Masechaba?
I look at the mirror the whole time.
Yes. You look at the mirror and then you tell me, what do you see when you look into this mirror?
When I look into this mirror, I see a beautiful, strong, vulnerable, highly intelligent, and loving Black woman who is here to change the status quo.
Sure.
With or without you.
Yeah. Oh, love it. I love it. So, I love it. Masechaba, thanks so much for your vulnerability. I really, really appreciate it. And I know that this show is going to touch so many people's lives. And congratulations on your TV show called The Dead Secret on SABC One. I think that is so amazing.
Thank you.
That you're helping people as well, right? Like release that bondage that comes from their heart.
Yeah.
And for me and the team, from one lit candle to another, I want to say, keep shining.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a light and allowing yourself to shine so brightly.
Yeah.
And to impact others in the way that God has called you to do.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I cannot say goodbye without thanking my team for making sure that I'm here today.
Yes.
And I'd love to plug this proudly South African brand.
Yes, please.
House of Zambezi for this.
Yes.
And much more. Follow my socials. You want to see more of their work. Thank you so much. I look fantastic because of them.
Yeah.
And people can tune into my show every Monday at 6 p.m. on SABC One. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for coming. And from me and the team, Mrs. Itumeleng Sekhu-Pedi, keep your